It's 1:10 p.m. on Tuesday 7 June 1983 and special train G82 is departing Oamaru station for Kurow. Turning onto the branch line at Pukiori Junction, train G82, comprising only a locomotive and guards van, now crosses State Highway 1, heading towards the Waitaki Valley and the branch terminus at Kurow. The last ever goods train from Kurow had run 5 days earlier, and now G82's crew have the task of removing all remaining rolling stock from the branch line. Oamaru Station's Vern Dunn was on hand to capture these final images of the branch. After reaching Kurow, all remaining rolling stock is shunted onto the train, now renumbered G83. Departing Kurow, G83 collects other rolling stock as it travels back down the branch. When G83 arrives back in Oamaru at 5:49 p.m, the 102-year era of the Kurow branch is over. 40 years later, I'm taking a trip up the Waitaki Valley to see what remains of the Kurow branch. But first, let's have a look at the story behind this ghost railway. The Kurow Branch Railway was located in the South Island of New Zealand, running from the east coast into the Waitaki Valley. It was built as two separate endeavours, one each side of Duntroon. The Awamoko Tramway Company, formed in 1873, began building a tramway the following year, but by 1875 it was apparent that this would be inadequate for the expected traffic, so it was rebuilt as a railway, which was quickly completed from Pukiori to the east side of the Mairawhenua River, just short of Duntroon. This river proved difficult to bridge, and here the railway ended for the next 5 years. Ambitions for a connecting railway to a proposed new town in the Hakataramea Valley led to the formation of the Duntroon and Hakataramea Railway Company. Construction began in 1879, and a completed railway from Pukiori to Hakataramea Village opened in 1881. In 1885, with the company in serious financial difficulties, and now with no hope of extending the line into the Hakataramea Valley, the railway was taken over by the government. In 1887, the opening of the Tokorahi branch, connecting to the Napara branch, brought to a close the construction of branch railways in this part of New Zealand. Dreams of a connection from Duntroon to Tokorahi and on to Naseby were never fulfilled. If you are interested in these neighbouring branch lines, check out my previous video, Ghost Railways, the Abandoned Napara and Tokorahi Lines. Passenger services ended on the Tokorahi and Napara branches in 1926, but the opposite happened with the Kurow branch, where a steam railcar service was introduced to cater for increasing traffic. This proved unreliable and was replaced by a passenger train in 1928. Construction of the Waitaki Hydro Dam began in the same year, and the Public Works Department completed a railway connecting the construction site to the Kurow branch. This line saw use for construction materials, school trains, and even sightseers viewing the new dam. With the line having never extended into the Hakataramea Valley, there had only been light traffic between Kurow and Hakataramea Village. This section was abandoned in 1930. The iconic twin bridges, which had carried both road and railway across the Waitaki River, now became road bridges only, and would remain as such for another 84 years. Having now served its purpose, the extension to the Waitaki Dam was dismantled in 1937. Mixed trains had replaced passenger-only trains during the Depression. The mixed trains provided a morning service from Kurow to Oamaru, with a return service in the afternoon, which took almost 3 hours. In 1947, the branch became freight only. On 17 September 1952, train operations ceased to be Kurow based, instead operating from Oamaru. Kurow railway staff, including my great uncle, are seen here, gathered for the occasion. The 1950s saw a number of branch line closures, including much of the neighbouring Waimate and Napara lines, but the Kurow branch was about to have a resurgence, servicing construction of new hydroelectric power stations. The peak of construction saw 2 trains each day crossing at Uxbridge, but this was eventually reduced to just 2 trains a week, with often only one operating. With construction of the Waitaki Hydro Scheme nearing completion in the early 1980s, the branch line which had outlasted so many others finally closed in 1983. With the closing of the last section of the former Napara branch in 1997, the era of branch railways in this part of New Zealand was over. For our Ghost Railway journey, we will join the train where the branch began, which is at Pukiori Junction. Pukiori is 9 kilometres north of Oamaru. The branch left the South Island main trunk just north of the freezing works, crossing State Highway 1 to initially run parallel to and just north of State Highway 83. This was once a busy station, serving main line, branch line and freezing works traffic. Nothing now remains of the platform, station and signal box which once stood here. The station buildings were some distance south of this level crossing, past the trees on the left. In this picture, the buildings are seen in the distance on the right. The track curving to the right was the beginning of the Kurow Branch. Turning from the south to look north, we see an isolated section of rail on the left side of the level crossing. This is all that remains of the start of the Kurow Branch. The train seen in this picture is just coming off the Kurow Branch and is about to come onto the South Island main trunk line. This older Google Maps image shows the rails still in the ground on the west side of the former State Highway 1 crossing. After a bit of digging around in the weeds, I found this last piece of the railway still in place. The branch now ran in a northwesterly direction towards Papakaio, with level crossings at Ferry Road and Grey Road. Looking down from State Highway 83, the line of power poles installed after the closure now indicates the route of the Ghost Railway. An old gate post made from a bent piece of rail and a shallow cutting remain where the line crossed Ferry Road near the intersection with State Highway 83. A similar old railway gate post and other railway leftovers also help us to locate the Grey Road level crossing site, which seems the most likely location for this photograph. With the very flat terrain, the route of the railway can otherwise be very hard to identify. The first stop on the line was Papakaio, one of only 4 stations still operating when the branch closed in 1983. The hotel and store which once stood beside the railway are long gone, but old rails used as fence posts and gate posts help to identify the route of the railway. The railway station area seems to have been partly replaced by the widened road. Leaving Papakaio, the route of the railway is now a farm road. The railway then followed a more or less straight line to the next station, Gibsons, near the intersection of Gibson and 7 Mile roads. Gibsons closed in 1981. The station platform is still there, and with permission, I was able to have a closer look around the station site. Nothing remains at the Peebles Station site or the Aitchison Station site, but shortly thereafter, near the intersection of Irvine and Jardine Roads, we come to the only major bridge on the line which was not demolished. The next station was Uxbridge, where trains would cross during the busy years of hydropower construction. Nothing remains of Uxbridge Station itself, but here the line ran to the left of Uxbridge Road, and the undulating landscape on this section means that the railway formation is now more obvious. Raised formation, shallow cuttings, old railway gate posts, some old concrete bridge abutments, and some remaining wooden bridge piles at a stream make this section of the line instantly recognisable as a ghost railway. I found no trace of Black Point Station, closed 1961, or Borton Station, closed 1972. The next stop was Duntroon, the most significant station on the branch other than Kurow itself. In its day, the railway dominated the town centre. Crossing the Morowhenua River on the left, the line then climbed to the station area before descending again towards the valley floor to head towards Kurow. Approaching the river from the east, the railway ran through the clearing below and onto a rail bridge to the right of the road bridge, just beyond this intersection. The rail bridge was originally a combined road and rail bridge, typical of many which once existed throughout New Zealand. In this later image, looking east, we can see the new road bridge on the right. Here, white wooden railings separate the road and railway. These are still in place today as we stand on the railway alignment looking back towards the river. The railway now ran through a shallow cutting as it climbed towards the town, and some foraging here reveals railway artefacts from long ago. A distinctive old railway wooden post, hand-cut limestone blocks which still line one side of the cutting, and the continuing wooden railings to separate the road from a railway which no longer exists. Leaving this cutting behind, the railway continued on a gradient before levelling out in the centre of the town. As these images show, Duntroon was once a busy station. The goods shed, tracks and trains are long gone. The station building and water tank seen here still exist as part of a private residence, while the remainder of the station area now serves as a park. The water tank is still visible if you are standing nearby on the Alps to Ocean cycle trail just past the old jailhouse. And here you can also see the route of the railway as it continues west towards Kurow. If we walk further along the cycle trail towards the Duntroon wetlands and look back, the station building is on our left. If we then turn to our right, we can discern the route of the railway descending the hillside as it passes along an embankment and through a cutting. Almost 2 hours after leaving Oamaru, our train is underway again. Continuing west on State Highway 83, the Ghost Railway is at some distance to our right. It is mostly obscured from view, but we catch the occasional glimpse of it through gaps in the hills. Traces of the line can be difficult to pinpoint on the next section, but the scenery makes for a pleasant drive. The railway comes back to and crosses State Highway 83 at a bend in the highway shortly before Eastern Road. Very flat ground in this area makes the Ghost Railway route very difficult to discern, so check an old map to make sure you are following the Ghost Railway and not a farm track or irrigation channel. At this particular old crossing, only the fence lines give us clues to the actual route of the railway. The railway route is now on our left, and after crossing Eastern Road is still in use as a gravel road. Just before the next bend in the highway, we come across a loading bank which was built only a few years before the line closed. This is of much more modern construction than the older wood and earth structures which existed at many of the line's stations. The Ghost Railway now continues on our left, and we now drive through an area of undulating landscape crossing several major rivers. This means that the railway formation is clearly visible on our left as a continual raised formation. Two stubborn wooden piles are all that remain of a once impressive wooden trestle bridge. The line crossed the road again shortly after this river, but with road realignment nothing remains of the level crossing site. Another 1.5 kilometres along the road we come to the site of Strawn Station, closed in 1978. None of its structures remain, but its location is distinguished by the gravelled clearing beside the road and the low formation which approaches this through the adjacent paddock. The Ghost Railway continues on our right until crossing the road again just before the Kurow River, again with no trace of the crossing today. Extensive horticultural and other development on this section has removed many traces of the line. Sections can, however, still be observed at some locations. The line then crossed the Kurow River to run through the town to Kurow Station before curving to the northeast to cross the Waitaki River to Hakataramea village. When the Hakataramea section closed in 1930, the initial curve remained in place to just short of the main road. There are no traces today of the extension which ran to the Waitaki Dam. The railway yards were a dominant feature of the town, and the layout of urban development just south of Ranfurly Street still reflects where the railway once curved towards the Waitaki River. Much of the railway yard is now a park, appropriately named the Railway Reserve. Relics of other industrial activities can also be seen nearby. Despite serving no passengers since 1947, the Kurow Station building remained in good condition and still exists today, housing a local business. You can even still hitch your horse where an old piece of rail was installed for this purpose. If our train is on time, it has arrived at 6:34 p.m, 2 hours and 44 minutes after leaving Oamaru. Curving across the main street, the railway then crossed the Waitaki River on twin wooden trestle bridges to reach the end of the line at Hakataramea's tiny station. This picture was taken at the northern end of Kurow Station platform. A little further north we see the tracks curving off to the right. The rail then crossed Kurow's main street, heading for the river. The twin bridges were a massive undertaking for the time, built with the vision of a railway extending into the Hakataramea Valley. However, the railway came to a stop in a field just beyond the second bridge. In this 1952 aerial photograph, the abandoned railway formation can be seen to the right of the road just after the second bridge. The end of the line was a very basic station comprising only of a loading bank and livestock ramp. The route of the railway can be distinguished today by the raised formation on the right, next to the row of gorse. The iconic wooden bridges continued as road bridges for 84 years after the rails were removed, finally being replaced by concrete bridges in 2014. Preserved sections can still be seen in Oamaru and Waimate, and also as a display in a park on Kurow Island, located between the two branches of the river which the bridges once crossed. While we can still find a number of interesting remnants, much of the Kurow Branch has disappeared through a combination of thorough demolition in the 1980s and extensive repurposing of the route it once travelled. A journey along the route nevertheless makes for a very pleasant outing, and at the end of the line we can continue further inland to enjoy the impressive dams and lakes which the railway played a major role in helping to create.